let's talk about inventory. Inventory is the items you sell to your customers when they place an order. Okay. Now, for you to make a sale, you need to have some amount of those items actually present with you, so that the customer makes an order, you can actually give them the product. The thing we are going to discuss today is how much of that inventory should we actually have at hand at any point in time. Okay, so why is that important? So number one is, if you don't have enough quantity when the customer makes an order and you can't sell it, that means you're going to lose that sale. Number two is, if you have too much of that quantity and not all of them are being sold, it means that you have invested money and the money is sitting idle, and that is actually a loss, right? Which is what we call an inventory holding cost. Okay, now let's talk about how do you actually optimize these things. Now, before we optimize this, let's talk about what are the different variables that are actually present. So there are three things we're going to talk about. So number one is the sale or demand is basically the number of orders that are being placed by your customers. Okay, and this is going to vary over a period of time depending on festival seasons, depending on how the economy is, depending on like seasonalities, a lot of things actually going over there. On the other hand, the second thing is what we call the procurement piece. So procurement is when you place an order to your vendor so that they can actually give you those units. Okay, now when they give you those units, it is not going to appear on the same day. It's going to take some time for it to come to your inventory. That means you have let's say 10 items, 5 you are selling like about 2 a day to your customers. That means before it actually gets to zero, a few days before it gets to zero, you need to place an order with your vendor so that the items can, the vendor can approve it and the items can actually come into your warehouse so that you never hit zero. So that's ideally what we are actually expecting to do. Okay, so given this, let's talk about how do we figure out the optimal time and the optimal quantity for us to place an order for, so that the inventory actually never hits zero. Okay, let's go through this using a simulation, assuming that we are running a car dealership. So here is a simulation to show how the inventory movement actually happens in the car dealership we spoke about. Okay, so there are 4 things for you to understand. So number one is what we call the sales. The orange line is the daily sales that you're actually looking at. On average is around like 2, and it kind of like varies over a period of time. Okay, we've assumed some kind of oscillation. The second one is the blue line. So the blue line shows how many cars do you have at any point in time on any given day. The number of cars will actually vary based on sales. Sales means the car actually goes out, and also based on the reorders. So when you place an order sometime earlier, so that you could have actually hit your inventory and it would go up. Okay, these are 2 things that actually happen over here. There are 2 lines you see here. So number one is the reorder level. So reorder level is the green line. So whenever the stock hits the reorder level or it goes down below reorder level, we place an order. So that means anytime the number of cars at hand goes below 10, so we place an order. So it takes a few days for the car to come in. So in this case, it came in 1 day. In some cases, it actually takes multiple days because there is a variation in lead time. The second one is what we call a safety stock. So safety stock is something you keep it as a backup that it can never go below this. That means this is kind of like an emergency. You always have a safety stock, and above that you set the reorder level. The safety stock in our case is around 5. So this simulation, so we just input these numbers and just run simulation. It actually gives you like different possibilities of what all things would actually happen, assuming different variations. You see different graphs each time because, we are assuming that these variations are like kind of like dynamic. So every time you actually get a different graph. Now we have a safety stock of 5 and the reorder level is 10. Now what if I do the reorder level as 12? So 12 is when I will end up having a lot of cars at any point in time. So let me just run the simulation. So in this case, I see that the sale barely reaches, the inventory barely reaches the sale level. That means I'm almost never getting to a stage where I'm out of inventory, which is good from a customer point of view. But if you are, running the shop, you are holding this extra inventory at all points in time, it is going to impact your revenue, because the cost of storing those cars in your garages and maintaining them and the money you have invested, all of those things are, lie idle, which is going to be a loss for you. Okay. But what if I make it a little tighter, let's say 8, okay? It is still good. On average, I'm actually selling around 2 cars per day, and I'm ordering when it hits 8. Run simulation. In some days, the stock hits 0. Okay, I mean, assume that it goes below 0 means the customer has actually ordered and you have not delivered yet. On some days the stock actually hits 0. Okay, in this case you don't have the stock available to sell to the customer. That this basically you can assume as lost sale. Okay, because there are a lot of variations in how things actually happen on a daily basis, and in some days your inventory actually runs out. Okay, so that's why you shouldn't keep it like too tight also. Similarly, there are other variables in terms of, what is the average number of days it takes. Let's say it takes a longer time, 3 days on average to come. That means you're going to run out of inventory a lot more. Okay, we should also improve the lead time factor 10. Yeah, so you're going to run out of inventory a lot more. But if it's tighter, that means you are able to get the inventory, as soon as you place the order, you get it soon. Then the variations will be actually much, much lesser. Okay, so this is kind of how you actually manage your inventory. We will see whether we can make this simulation available for you guys over a tool. We'll add that in a bit. But for now, the thing to understand is how do you kind of keep this gap to the minimum. At the same time, your inventory should never hit 0. Okay, so this is the fundamentals of how do you manage inventory. Hopefully this is helpful. We have a blog post which is accommodating this, where we have detailed each of these parts. Now go have a look. The link will be attached to this video below. If you have any questions or anything else you want me to kind of elaborate on, let me know. Thank you.